Happy holidays in pandemic, when they say that even people who have no faith are praying for an end to a pandemic crisis. The question this morning is, have you ever found yourself walking on water? I say again, have you ever found yourself walking on water? It's the first Sunday of Advent, when most Christian churches generally begin with the revelation to Zechariah and Elizabeth about the miraculous birth of a wild man named John the Baptist, who would announce the coming of Emmanuel, a name meaning God is with us. And that's a biblical story that actually touches close to home for me, because my parents had a similar problem regarding the choice of a name of their eldest son. That's another story. But let's fast forward from the seasonal text, chapter 14, in which is perhaps my favorite of the Synoptic Gospels, the book of Matthew, which actually begins by recording that at the time Herod, we remember Herod, the Tetrarch, heard of the fame of Jesus and said unto his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him." And as you recall, even if only watching the movie King of Kings, that chapter begins with the macabre affair at a birthday celebration when the wife of Herod had asked for John's head to be served up on a platter. But we go down to verses 22 through 28, and we find a happier story that says, "And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship, and to go before him unto the other side. Go on without me, while he sent the multitudes away." Scat. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. Perhaps not remembering what happened when Moses went up to the mountain, but he went up to the mountain to pray. And when he had sent the multitudes away, all of this had transpired. When the evening was come, he was there alone, up on the mountaintop. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with the waves, for the wind was contrary. Uncertain times. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were a bit troubled, saying, "It is a spirit, ghost, my imagination playing tricks on me," and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, "Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid." And that last part sounds like Lucy and all the Peanuts explaining to Linus, like in the Christmas greeting, like the angels that told the shepherds watching their sheep by night to fear not, for a Savior was born in Bethlehem. But the narrative goes on from there to state, "And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou," he's still a bit cautious and curious, saying, "If it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water." And Jesus takes up that triple dog dare from the fishermen, and he said, "Come." And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, "O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, "Of a truth, thou art the Son of God." So again, especially to my folks in faith, virtual service experience in pandemic, I have to ask you if you ever walked upon the water. I remember as a child, there used to be a delightful Sunday school lesson program on television. And the teacher tried to demonstrate a lesson from this text by telling us that he was going to walk on the water for us. And as a lover of magic tricks, with the skepticism of a determined scientist, I had to admit that Sunday school teacher had caught my undivided attention. And he knew that a guy like me would probably be interested even if I had not yet made my decision for Christ. And while I admit that I was a bit disappointed at the time with the gotcha moment when he showed up on a frozen lake, it wasn't until a little while later, after chewing on that lesson, after being disappointed by this infantile form of exegetical analysis, that I was able to get the blessing from the lesson that worked some magic upon a babe of faith. In that painful lesson, growth is painful. Growth is painful. Change is inevitable, but growth is optional. I was taught to reimagine a problem, finding another way to look at the facts from another perspective. And maybe I needed a little pain to experience a sufficient evolutionary pressure to recognize the revelation unto me. I certainly in that moment wasn't exactly looking for the Lord, but I can definitely say that he was still yet calling unto me, just like a drill sergeant giving you a little bit of pain and basic training. And I still recall my first philosophy professor describing his scholastic discipline as setting adrift upon the seas and daring to rebuild the very boat upon which he was sailing while in the middle of the ocean, pulling first at the plank oars beneath your feet, rejoicing in the water gushing up in your face. And you have to be a little bit out of your mind to find that an attraction. You have to admit, because it does go against everything that you believe makes sense in your science. But still I ask, have you ever walked upon the water? I bet that you have, and you didn't recall it or don't realize it. If you ever learned to ride a bicycle and had your daddy or mommy or friend being right there behind you to keep you from falling over, then looking back to discover, waking up surprised, yourself just riding like the other bigger kids on your own. Okay, it might be a little while before you were riding without hands or popping wheelies or riding around the block by yourself and going down to the movies and everything else, but you had finally graduated to the big kids club without training wheels, without a tricycle, hopefully without a crashing end. And you can just imagine that old Pete had the same experience. Everybody loves to be the favorite of the boss, and Pete was on a mission to be top salesman at the office. So it didn't take much coaxing for him to accept an invitation for FaceTime with the man in the front office. You know the type. Maybe that is you. Maybe that is you. It might not be you, but there's somebody out there, wants to be the top guy in the office. Office politics. But all of a sudden, he kind of found himself a little doubtful and recalls his initial doubts and definitely started thinking about the science that he had at least learned as a fisherman in fisherman's school and had no desire to be found swimming with the fishes. How a fisherman doesn't know how to swim is probably one of those existential questions you'll have to ask Pete when if you see him at the pearly gate. But I still recall one of the very first times that I actually had an experience walking on the water. And since most of my childhood memories come from things like church camp, choir rehearsal, daily vacation Bible school, other activities where I guess you're going to die of COVID these days, where it's a little difficult to get into too much more trouble, especially if you're a preacher's kid, I was at a church picnic. Yeah, I was at a church picnic, and this girl there's always a girl, this girl who I had actually met at a New Year's Eve party. But the clock struck midnight, and I struck out on getting a New Year's gift. It happens, Deal with it, it's high school. She was a real Georgia peach from Atlanta, and I was just happier than a sparrow at a mockingbird convention that she had returned to see her grandmother and had come to a church picnic. And I was there. I chased all around Bear Mountain trying to discover where she had gone after everyone had eaten. Maybe she was giving me the hard to get kind of thing. I have no idea, but I was still just chasing. And I discovered that she was out rowing in a boat with her cousin. I had never been in a rowboat in my entire life. But you know how infatuation is for a child, especially when he's a pubescent. And before I knew it, I was in a rowboat with my little brother on a sea quest to find her out on the lake. We actually found her with her boat stuck in some tangles near a tiny island. And very romantically, I thought, managed to rescue her, a damsel in distress. And maybe she was trying to give me a subtle hint because somehow I lost her and had to try to find her all over again after we landed. And I discovered that she had run off to the swimming pool with her cousins. She would probably rather be with her cousins than myself. But I was yet determined because I was a boy and she was a girl. And despite 3 years of 1-week lessons at summer church camp, probably the hottest lifeguard in the whole heavenly place, providing private lessons that made her begin to wonder after the second year if I was just pretending that I did not know how to swim. I did not know how to swim like an expert swimmer when I ran all the way down to the pool. I did not know how to swim like an expert when I spotted my soulmate in destiny swimming in the deep end. And I can only say that I had entirely lost my damn mind when I began to climb the top of the tower and launch myself off the diving board, literally falling head over heels in love. And let's just say, thank God in heaven looks out when love is in full, because it turned out that my Georgia peach was actually a trained lifeguard and rescued me and my stupid self in love. And that's a Christmas miracle story that you'll never hear in church because you know that dog don't know. So whether you're hoping to find mommy kissing Santa Claus, thinking of a blue Christmas without you, got your chestnuts roasting on an open fire, or just unhappy that the Grinch stole Christmas, my name is Major Mike Webb, and by God, I am running for governor of Virginia. I ask every Christian, every conservative, every Republican, and every Virginian to, like the motto of the infantry, follow me, and we shall overcome. Y'all come back down here, honest.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.